this is a really brief or maybe potentially very long walkthrough of quite a useful app that I use on my phone. And I just wanted to share this online, partly because it's a good app to have, and also because it's got some pretty useful information in it for me to get verified on the internet. So on Android phones, you get loads of bullshit notifications all the time, and sometimes they're really useful and sometimes they're not. The push notifications, so when you get something at the top that tells you that shit's happening, it kind of sometimes it's just really annoying and bullshit, and sometimes it's really, really useful. And there's lots of different reasons why, for whatever different scenario and whatever you do with your life, it might be sometimes useful to get a record of all of those notifications. There's loads and loads and loads of apps that you can get which store your notification history. Some of them are kind of good and some of them are not so good, but effectively they all do the same thing. Now, there isn't really a kind of a rule to it, or I don't really know that there's good ones or bad ones, but certainly they do have a purpose. But it's not always something which is as clear or necessarily obvious unless you've actually had one for yourself, and if you've ever had any reason to use it or to look at them. So I'm just going to find this one through the list of apps I've got installed on my phone. Shouldn't take me a second, but for some reason they're not in alphabetical order today, which is a little bit weird. Let's have a look. That's a bit unusual. Let me have a look. I can't find it, and I can't bother to make this video twice. So oh, there we go. I'm just too stupid to use the App Store. It shows what I know, but to be honest with you, I'm putting this video on the internet more for the purpose of content than it is a review. But it's already been 3 minutes long, and it's probably the most banal, boring fucking horseshit you've seen all day, if you haven't stopped the video already. Anyway, because my IQ is so low, I'm stupid, I've eventually taken 4 minutes to show you the app on the App Store, made by some dude called Barry, which is nice, and he's from India, apparently, and it's got 3.4, and anyway, it's an App Store notification log history app. So I use this as a spare phone. I only turn it on like every few days, and what this will do is it will store all of the notifications which are put into the phone. So every time any of these push notifications pop up at the top of the screen, it stores all of them. Now I've got this old S6 and I've got another A21S that I use predominantly, that one and this one. This one I just keep as a kind of as a spare, the S8. Now you can see it takes a little while for the app to sort of do its thing. The reason for that is because it's holding loads and loads of data, and it's a really useful thing to have if you want to record all of the information that your phone pops up and tries to tell you. It depends on which apps that you're using. And if you don't back it up regularly and export the data, if for whatever reason you keep a record of it, it can start to lag. The reason why that's taken a couple of minutes to load, I mean, the S8's got a shit-hot processor. Well, it's pretty good. I mean, it's as good as a lot of, it was the flagship Samsung when it came out a couple of years back. But yeah, you can see it's got all of these notifications in here. So it's got ones from Gmail and then Messenger. There's ones from One UI Home telling me to update the software on this phone. There's ones here from Instagram, ones from Messenger, Lloyds Bank. But I only turn this phone on every now and again. And when you turn it on, if you ever use a spare phone or you use Android logged into another phone, you'll find you just get shitloads that pop up at once. And normally, if you use your phone every day and you've got a notification history app, what they will show you is that there'll be a kind of like a date line, and it will show you all of the notifications for that day. So like if somebody sends you a message and you just forget about it, or if somebody, it's just a useful thing to have at the end of the day. If you've just been really busy and you've like kind of swiped stuff left, swiped stuff right, just before you go to bed at the end of the day, you can look at all of the notifications you've had for that day. And sometimes you'll find there's things in there which are pretty useful, or things that you kind of didn't necessarily pay attention to at first, which maybe you should have done because they weren't bullshit or it wasn't just spam. So this, you can see the 3rd of March, I turned this phone on and I got a whole load of notifications from my bank, a whole load of notifications from other apps and stuff too. And you can export these as sort of folders, and you can put them into, you can back them up if you've got it from another phone, so you've got a history of everything. But it's kind of useful because it just gives you sort of like a chronological, it's a little bit like the rings on a tree. It gives you the chronological history of kind of everything that you've done on your phone, and all of the apps that are speaking to you, and all of the apps that are giving you various different bits of data. You've got all of that stored on your phone. I only use this every now and again. And so all of the notifications that I've got come in sort of like a big, in a big bundle altogether. But there's quite a few different reasons why you might want one of these notification log history apps. If you've got dodgy apps, I don't know that I have. I'm not an IT expert. I don't really have a kind of like a full understanding of how common sort of fraudulent apps or fake apps are or can be. But if every time an app's speaking to your operating system on your phone, you've got a record of that. If you understand that sometimes these, a lot of the time push notifications can be fraud. They can be clickbait. They can be things which, something will pop down on the top of your Android screen, and if you click on it, it will be bullshit. It will take you to a website that's spam or that's phishing or that's something that you don't necessarily want to look at. But certainly all of these things, it's kind of like this app kind of lags and it's a little bit slow and shit. I had one before a couple of years back when I was using this phone more regularly, and it's just really useful to be able to scroll back through because it kind of gives you a broad picture of all of the makeup of what applications you've been using, and it kind of helps you to map your life. I mean, you can see here, this was like when I first got to London. I was outside Sainsbury's in Westminster on Marsham Street. I'd just been round to the MI5 building, but it was closed. And eventually I got put in a taxi. I was taken to Southall, which I wouldn't necessarily, be able to evidence if it wasn't for the fact that I had this app. I mean, I would, but it's like, that if I needed to know what time it was I was picked up, what time I was there, if I needed to know, I mean, it doesn't necessarily prove anything, but it's just a very useful app to have. Android operating systems have loads of apps that all give notifications, and they all tell you lots of different information about various different things. And that can be anything from financial transactions, social media, emails, different communications. But there's just so many different things that we use apps for, and having a makeup and a kind of a general broad picture of all of the times those apps have tried to communicate with the operating system helps you to work out where you've been, what you've been doing, and again, just to remind you of all the different things that have happened. So you can see this is, again, these have come through in a kind of like massive, fierce ejaculation of lots and lots and lots of notifications that have come through at once. So if you use it on a regular, what you'll find is that you get lots of different notifications that all appear as part of a kind of, they'll be daily. But I mean, if you scroll through, let's have a little look. So when we get through to the date, so these are all from the 14th of November. So all of those ones there are. So there's notifications from YouTube, loads from my bank. So this is the last time I turned the phone on. So I don't use it very regularly. But this one, the 14th of November, and then the next one will be, there'll be a shitload of them. Again, all of the loads from Lloyds Bank, loads from YouTube, like, just advertising videos that have popped up in my newsfeed or in my subscriptions. And that's on the 2nd of November. So, these aren't daily. These are just every time I've turned the phone on, it's recorded it. And I don't use it, actually, ironically, on my other phones very much. But I have still used it on this one, and I'm going to install it on my other phones. But I'm just making this video, which is now 11 minutes long and mind-numbingly boring for you, as much just to document what's there. So if you haven't got a notification history app, and for whatever reason you think you might want to know what you were doing when and what your phone was telling you to do about whichever apps you've got on your phone, and if you want a record of that, if you did have, for example, like a cloned or dodgy shell version of an app, and it had been giving you notifications that weren't legit, you could just send that notification through to whoever it was, and you could have a record of that. Now, there's certain things, obviously, when you go into, on this operating system, I don't know which version of One UI this is, but you can block notifications, which some of them are really fucking annoying, and you might want to do that. But majoritively, you can get operating systems from, you get application notifications from lots of different things. So like ACR is a call recording app that I use, and I've had that one turned off because it just gives you a constant notification to let you know that it's switched on all the time. Sometimes they're really annoying and sometimes they aren't. But there's also system apps which give you notifications as well. The way that Samsung's operating system works is kind of unique in that sometimes you've got parts of the menu which operate as individual kind of software elements in themselves on the operating system. So rather than kind of like a setting being just something which is inbuilt as part of the operating system, sometimes they operate as kind of applications or individual bits of external software rather than running on the kind of bloatware or on the main part of the system. But I'm fucking shit at IT and I don't really know what I'm talking about, but like I sort of do. So these are all of the applications, including the system apps and apps that I've installed from the App Store that send notifications to the phone. There's loads of them, and if you've got a notification, if you use your phone regularly, and especially if you're using a Samsung phone, but I mean, I guess it's probably the same for a lot of Android systems, but if you do use them regularly and you want to keep a record of it, getting a notification log app is quite good. You can also recover other notifications from the app too. But yeah, that's the way it's running at the moment. So you can see it's sort of starting to lag a little bit now. It sort of doesn't really, because it loads up so much information at once, sometimes it can be very, very kind of temperamental, but eventually it sort of picks up the pace. And this video is now 15 minutes long, which is fucking absolutely tragic, really. But I guess I'll just have another little scroll through, just because there are some people who might find this interesting because of what it says, rather than the fact that I'm just spending 15 minutes of your life scrolling through an app with pointless notifications from a phone that I only use once every few days. But yeah, this is a history of all of my Android notifications from all of the applications which I've got installed across my devices. So these will be applications which have been replicated on this device and on my A21s and on the old trusty S6. It's a bulletproof phone. If you need to get a phone, get one of these. I get 80 gigabyte broadband on this. Like the modem on it's absolutely shit hot, and they're indestructible. It was when Samsung still made good phones. The S8 was a good phone. It's like IP67 waterproof. It's made out of aluminium. All their new phones are absolutely wank. Well, they've got like the A series, which are all really cheap, and then they've all of the S series are kind of like £1,000 now. And I guess this phone was like 700 or 800 quid when it came out. But these are notifications which would have been replicated on all the other devices. But some of them, things like bank notifications or notifications from YouTube, you aren't going to be replicating every. It's only going to be the things which are messages from the app. But this is 16 minutes long now, and this is going right back to a while ago. I think what I'm going to do is maybe just record all of them separately. You can see the little scroller there. I'm not even halfway through. It thinks it's got about 20,000. Yeah, it's got about 20,000 there. You can choose by which app you want to use. Yeah, it's kind of, it's one of those. So if I want to just look at Instagram notifications, it will filter those, but it'll probably take fucking ages. Yeah. There you go. See, it sort of like starts to lag a little bit. I don't know if these are, you can probably get a bit of a slicker version, but effectively these are sort of things which you can do on the app, but it's all quite boring. Probably this isn't really meant to be entertaining. I mean, it'll be entertaining for some people, and some people go, actually, that's quite a good idea. You know, people can fraudulently write applications from your phone, and I guess it's just useful to have at the end of the day if you want to know kind of like what you've been up to when you're sat in bed, you're not really sure what you've been doing, and you've had a busy, hectic day, and you've been just swiping loads of shit off your phone, and there might have been messages from people that you want to speak to, or kind of stuff that like you need to pay attention to. And also if you just want to go back and sort of be like, what was I doing on the kind of 3 months ago on this date, and it will show you what the apps are telling you, and some of them will be useful things and some of them aren't. So you can export all of them if you wanted to, as kind of different types of files, and yeah, I mean, you can, I might stick those in Drive in a bit, and you can do other stuff too. But that's how this app works. I'm in a hotel in Notting Hill tonight, and I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, but hope your day's more interesting than the last 18 minutes of your life's been. Thanks for watching, and if this makes it onto YouTube, then say some shit like, comment, subscribe, and other stuff like that, and phone me on 07927 625 270 or 07576 713 026, because I'm in London at the moment, and it'd be really great to see everyone, even though you probably found this the most boring video you've ever watched, and it's now taken 20 minutes. You can see how unhealthy my hands are, and how much you wished you hadn't watched this video, but there you go.